Hey, good evening out there to everybody on the other side of the computer screen. I'm Gabe DeArmond. This is the Baseline View, our Mizzou Hoops pregame show that we do before every Missouri basketball game, or at least have done before every Missouri basketball game since I think bragging rights are in that range. There aren't many of them left. Somewhere between 2 and 5 regular season games left. The SEC tournament starts 2 weeks from tomorrow. Selection Sunday, I think 3 weeks away, a little under 3 weeks away. And we are gearing up for the stretch run here, but a little bit of regular season basketball left. And it starts tonight in Columbia at Mizzou Arena in about 57 minutes on SEC Network. Ole Miss in town. The good news for you guys watching, I'm going to assume most of you are Missouri fans, is that it was going to be difficult for this one to be worse than the last time Missouri played Ole Miss. I'm not going to say it's impossible because I don't want somebody coming back here on the postgame show and say that I said it couldn't be worse. I learned a long time ago from Bob Boone as a Royals fan, don't ever say it can't get worse. It can always get worse. But it's going to be tough for it to be worse than it was for Missouri on February 10th in Oxford. 80-59 in a game that, if memory serves, was 37-33 Ole Miss at halftime. It was a competitive game. I mean, it looked like, hey, both teams are shooting pretty well. They've cooled off a little bit, but we're settling into a decent little contest here. And then Ole Miss came out of the locker room at halftime, and Missouri, I mean, physically did, but that was about it. Got outscored, I guess it would have been 43-26, something like that in the second half, and it was uglier even than that. That game was ridiculously over by the end of it, no question. So, hey, we'll see if it goes better this time around. That started a 3-game losing streak for Missouri, and now Missouri trying to get a little winning streak going. As Lou Brown famously said, or not Lou Brown, I believe it was, might have been Lou Brown. Now I can't remember which game it is, but or which movie it is. But you won last night. If you win tonight, that's 2 in a row. That's called a winning streak, and believe it or not, it has happened around here before. So Missouri going for 2 in a row. Ole Miss looking to bounce back from a 66-56 loss at Mississippi State. Appreciate everybody who is here at the start of this thing. We generally have some people come and go as we go along, but we've got a few comments. We'll definitely get to those. If you're here, a few of you have already hit the like button on the show. Appreciate that. Do that. Subscribe to the channel. That way you'll get a heads up when we go live after the game. And thank you both to Jake and Ron for confirming that was from Major League. I had this like moment where I was afraid that was from Bull Durham, but that wasn't from Bull Durham. That was Lou Brown in Major League. The Bull Durham quote is about the lollygaggers. There's a bunch of Bull Durham quotes, but the one I love is about the lollygaggers. But yes, Major League, Lou Brown, one of the better quotes, one of the better movies. Probably should watch that again sometime soon. But if you're here, hit the subscribe button. You'll be able to know when we go live for the post-game show. It always varies a little bit. We shoot for 2.5 hours after tip-off, but depends on the length of the game, depends on the length of Konzo's press conference, how quick he is getting in there. So we're shooting for 10:30 tonight. I know 8 o'clock games on weeknights. A lot of people don't always stay up for postgame, but we hope you guys will. Hope you'll come back here after the game, hang out with us. Give me a call, and we'll talk about it a little bit. But before we get into this game, I want to get into a little bit of what else is going on in the SEC so far, because it's crazy. And Jake says, points it out, Georgia is walloping LSU. I hope that continues, and we get to play them. Otherwise, the top 4 seed seems doubtful as of now. So Georgia is up on LSU. That game now actually has gone into the second half. It's a minute and a half into the second half, and Georgia's actually extended the lead to 49-31. I don't know what the hell's going on in Athens. That's crazy. I would not have seen that coming. And then Florida is at Auburn tonight. Auburn is playing without Sharif Cooper, and Florida's winning 44-22 at halftime. So I think we can chalk that up as a win. And I'm going to take a look at the SEC standings as if Georgia is going to hang on and beat LSU. Like, look, we know that could always turn around. We've seen strange second half things in the SEC. But if that happens, LSU will fall to 9-5 in the league. Florida will go to 8-5 with the win over Auburn. Missouri, if they want a top 4 seed, they're going to have to win tonight. That would a win tonight would put Missouri 8-6. It would tie them at least temporarily with Tennessee, who is at Vanderbilt tomorrow night. Assuming Tennessee wins that, then they would go to 9-6. Missouri would fall back into 6th place, but they would knock Ole Miss a couple games back, and they would stay in contention for that top 4 seed. If they lose tonight, top 4 seed, you can forget about it. I think Missouri almost needs to win out, and it's going to be a little bit weird because not everybody's going to have the same number of games. And along those lines, Missouri is supposed to play Texas A&M on Saturday. Texas A&M has not played a basketball game since, let me look, since the Big 12 SEC Challenge on January 29th. So they have not played a game this month. Their last 6 games have been postponed. They're not very good. They're 2-6 in the league, 8-7 overall somehow. They don't really seem to be in a big hurry to get back on the floor. They are supposed to visit Columbia on Saturday. We don't have any word on that yet. It still could happen. But just the way things have gone with A&M, it seems a little bit unlikely right now. Then obviously there are those games out there with LSU and Vanderbilt. We expect the SEC to attempt to reschedule those. The Big 12 came out today with a whole revamp plan. They've got Baylor playing 5 games in 12 days. They've got Oklahoma State playing 5 games, all against teams ranked in the top 12. So, like, this can be done. If the SEC wants to do it. It would help, again, if A&M would get back on the floor. But even if not, if Missouri could get back the Vandy game and the LSU game, then that helps. But they're pretty much going to have to win out, I think, to get a top 4 seed. I've got a tough time seeing it happen if they don't, unless the wheels just fall off for LSU or Florida or Tennessee here down the stretch. So one note before we get to some of your comments and play a couple interviews with players and such, Jim Sturck is actually speaking over at Mizzou Arena at 7:15 before the game. Some of the reporters covering the game are going to get a chance to talk to Jim. Mitchell Forty is going to be there. So if anything happens or any news comes out of that, Mitch is either going to just let me know and I'll pass that on, or he may call in. So if that happens, obviously we'll jump to Mitchell from Mizzou Arena. But he's talking to Mizzou's athletic director here in about 5 minutes. Eli Drinkwitz, we met with him today about spring football. They hired a new coach. That was news that Mitchell broke on our site this morning. So a lot of stuff happening, busy time, but this is a basketball-centric show, and we've got quite a few comments building up. So I want to get to talking about what you guys want to talk about. And Mark wants to see Torrance Watson get hot in one of the remaining games before the tournament. Yeah, I mean, Watson or Mark Smith, Mark Smith's played 2 good games in a row. He's averaged 12 and 6 rebounds in the last 2 games, and Missouri will take that out of him any day, I think. If you get 12 and 6 out of Mark, you get Tillman playing well again, you get Pinson and Drew Smith play well, like that's a formidable team. Now, hey, if Torrance Watson comes in off the bench and can get hot on a certain day too, that'd be great. You'll take it from wherever you can get it. I found it interesting, and I talked to a little bit about this in something I wrote earlier this week. Torrance Watson played, I think it was 15 minutes on Saturday against South Carolina. Parker Brown played 14 minutes. Drew Buggs played 17 minutes. Missouri played 10 guys in that game, and only one of them, Drew Smith, played more than 24 minutes. That is a conscious thing that Konzo Martin said he wanted to do. Now, also, it helps to have a 20-point lead or a 15-point lead most of the second half where you can do it. I mean, if Missouri's in a 4-point game against Ole Miss tonight with 12 minutes to go, I don't think Konzo's going to be saying, yeah, let's just toss some guys out there just to toss guys out there and keep the minutes balanced. But what I think games like Saturday do, and if you can do it a couple more times, whether it's tonight, whether it's Saturday against A&M, whether it's when you play Vanderbilt, if you can limit the minutes for Pinson and Mark Smith and especially Javon Pickett and Jeremiah Tillman right now, then that keeps you fresher. And I know this is a spot that a lot of Missouri fans aren't familiar with, but you right now are playing for 3 weeks from now. You are not playing. I mean, you'd like a top 4 seed. You play to win every game, obviously. You're not trying to not beat Ole Miss tonight. But you are – I think Missouri's about one win away from in the tournament. I always define the term – I hate the term lock when we're talking about the NCAA tournament because to me, lock means you can lose every game and you're still getting in. Missouri's one win away from that. If Missouri wins tonight, they can lose to A&M. They can lose to Florida. They can lose to LSU and Vandy, and they're still going to get in. So they're one win from lock status. And you are playing now. You are setting your team up. You are trying to set your roster up and have your guys rested for that first Friday and Saturday in Indianapolis, March, I'm trying to think what that is, 19th and 20th. That's what you're playing for right now. Again, obviously you want to win games, but if you can win games and get Pinson 22 minutes in a game or get Tillman 21 minutes in a game or only play Pickett 15 minutes in a game, then that is the best of both worlds. Ron Davis feeling revenge tonight. Tillman and Pinson have something to prove. Yeah, those two guys in particular, I felt like were the ones that were getting called out by Konzo Martin after the game in Oxford. And we've since learned that, Jeremiah may have learned about the death of his grandmother before that game. So you would kind of understand that. And Konzo has said a couple of times he thinks that really that impacted the whole team, not just Tillman. But I felt like it was those two guys who were mostly the target of what Konzo said after that game. But I also think this whole team has something to prove. I mean, that was – I don't think there's any question. That was the worst half of the season. That was worse than the first half against Tennessee here. That was probably even worse than the second half against Georgia, although I'm not positive about that. But the difference in that Georgia game or the Mississippi State game was I didn't feel like Missouri gave up in those games. They got outplayed. They didn't play very well, but I didn't feel like they gave up. The game in Oxford, I felt like Missouri gave up. And from Konzo's comments, it sounded like he felt Missouri gave up. So along those lines, we had a chance yesterday to talk to a couple of the guys on the team, a couple of seniors. I'm going to play one of those interviews for you right now. We'll come back, talk a little bit more about your comments, questions, all that. But real quick, here's Mitchell Smith from yesterday morning.
Gabe?
Mitchell, how much has it helped the last couple games? Obviously, you'd love to have Jeremiah, but him being gone, Kobe being a little more aggressive, Parker getting more experience, can that be a silver lining?
Yeah, I think that helps a lot. I think you can see Parker getting a lot more confidence in his game also. He's made some really big plays last couple of games, a lot of big blocks, even scoring the ball and just making those plays that, stand out in the game. So I feel like that's huge for him. And then Kobe, you can just see how Kobe's coming along. He's way more confident in himself. He's scoring the ball in the post, out of the post, playing good defense, getting rebounds. So I think that could help us a lot, and it's going to help us a lot, and it'll make us a deeper team down the road.
Dave?
Mitch, you guys just played Ole Miss not too long ago, it seems like. Was that one kind of easy to analyze when you look back and see what went wrong, or what did you take away from it as you prepare for them a second time?
I just felt like after watching film, we got punched in the mouth when we went there. So, with them coming back in here on Tuesday, it gives us a chance, to really come out and show them how we play. How we kind of did against South Carolina. First half, we held them to 29 points. That's kind of how we are. That's how we play. So I feel like we take that same approach to this game. It'd be a better outcome.
Mitch?
Hey, Mitchell, you've obviously, known Jeremiah for his whole college career, and we've heard, Konzo and others talk about his kind of growth and maturity this season. I'm curious, just what does that look like to you, be it, off the court or at practice or whatever?
I've been with JT. It's just a whole different presence with him this year. He's more calm, collected when he walks to the gym, when we're at practice. nothing really gets JT, frantic or anything. He just plays the game. He lets the game come to him and just plays. So that's a lot of props to him and his maturity and how he approaches the game, and just him growing up overall. I'm proud of JT.
Blair? You are muted, Blair.
Yep, sorry about that. Mitchell, you're part of the first class senior class that has an opportunity to extend their eligibility. Have you given any consideration to that at all?
When you first heard that you could come back for another year, that's what all guys were talking about. But with the group we got now, I just want to focus on this season. I want to take this as far as I can with this group right now. And then at the end of the season, we'll go back and everybody will talk about what we want to do.
Then on that.
Mitch, if this is your last few weeks or month or so in a Mizzou uniform, have you had a chance to kind of reflect on how far you've come? You've pushed through a lot of injuries, coaching changes. That's a lot has happened in your time here at Missouri.
Oh yeah, for sure. A lot has happened. But I'm extremely grateful for how everything's been going. I've learned a lot through these years. I've got to meet a lot of great people through this program. So, it's bittersweet, but just like Blair was saying, we could run it back again next year. So I'm just gonna keep going as far as we can this season.
Colin?
Hey, Mitch, kind of an extension of the question you answered earlier on JT, but what does his presence on the court, having him back, do for the rest of the group mentally?
It's just having a big 6'10", 260 guy out there. That's a dog. People feed off JT. We have extreme confidence in JT. So when he's out there, that's a big body in the paint. So you can push the ball into him, and then we can just play off of that. So I think that's huge for our team to have him back. We're great to have him back.
Jack?
Mitch, you guys had that players only meeting before the South Carolina game. How'd that impact you guys on Saturday?
I think I really just made everybody get out what they needed to say. We were able to talk things out that we saw on the court and off the court that we were doing. And I feel like we just all refocused on our goal at hand. And we saw how the outcome came out when we played South Carolina. So I think it did us a lot of good.
All right, so Missouri had a players-only meeting, I don't know, at some point before the South Carolina game. And, look, that's going to get made into a big thing, right? They came out, they looked good, they won. I think a big thing was they played South Carolina. That's helpful. I would recommend that for any teams looking to break a losing streak. Go play the Gamecocks because they struggle this year. But people are going to make it into a big thing. And if Missouri goes on a winning streak, hey, cool. Point to the big players-only meeting that changed everything around. I'm not sure there's much truth to that. I generally think meetings are overrated. Winners win and losers meet and whatever. But, hey, if they feel like it turned some things around and cleared the air, then good for them and carry on. So Georgia has extended its lead. Well, it had extended its lead over LSU to 21. It's down to 17. Florida leading Auburn by 19. Game of the week in the SEC, Alabama at Arkansas tomorrow night. But you guys are more worried about Ole Miss and Missouri, and Nick Marker wants to know, who do you think needs to step up tonight in order for us to win? The recipe is always pretty similar for Missouri. It's going to mostly be about Tillman, Drew Smith, and Pinson. Those are the three best players. If two of those three play well, Missouri's going to have a shot. If only one of the three plays well, they're going to get beat. If they all three play well, they'll win. And if none play well, they'll probably get blown out. But it's almost always those three. And, I don't know if you can identify a certain guy. Like, hey, if Mitchell Smith comes out and suddenly has 17 points, that's great. But I'm not going into this game saying Mitchell Smith's got to step up. It's mostly Tillman, Drew Smith, Pinson, and then get a little help from somewhere else. That's true every game. That's the recipe for this team. Doesn't change really based on the opponent. Georgia Rebel coming over to hang out. Appreciate the G-Pits question. Neil and I are actually going to record something tomorrow morning. So you'll have a greatest pod in the South this week. It probably will not extensively break down Ole Miss, Missouri, because that's not really the vibe on that show. We do that here. But on that show, we tend to talk about things that are more fun than 8 o'clock Tuesday night basketball games. But we will get a few hours sleep and record something in the morning. So you can look for that tomorrow. Steve P really want Pinson to play well again. Yeah, I thought he played well on Saturday against South Carolina. I mean, he had 16 points, no turnovers. Now, it wasn't a 30-point game, but you take 16 points and no turnovers out of your starting point guard every single night. There's not a coach in America that is going to complain about that. So I think everybody played well, but it was South Carolina. Again, Ole Miss is a better team, and Ole Miss is a desperate team. Ole Miss they're going to have a tough time making the tournament, but it's not impossible. They're 12-9. They're 7-7 in the league. They've got 3 games left. At Missouri tonight, at Vanderbilt, home against Kentucky. The last 2 are very winnable. If they win this and they have a season sweep of Missouri, they're sitting 15-9, 10-7 in the league with a potential game to make up against LSU. I mean, that's a tournament resume. It's not, it's probably a 9 seed, a 10 seed, but they can still get in. And they probably can't if they lose this game tonight, because then they're sitting 12-10, 7-8. All you got left is Vanderbilt and Kentucky. Then you probably got to make a run in Nashville. But Ole Miss is playing for its season tonight, and the same thing was true on February 20th or February 10th, the first time they played. And I said after that game that I thought Ole Miss played like a team that had to win, and Missouri played like a team that didn't really want to be there. That can't happen tonight. I mean, Ole Miss, you have to expect you're getting the same effort out of Ole Miss that you got in the second half in Oxford. You have to expect that they are showing up knowing, hey, if we want to make the tournament, we got to go get this done. You got to be expecting Devontae Shuler in his 19th season in Oxford. He is a senior. The other seniors on that team, Romello White, even though they theoretically can, like we talked about with Mitchell Smith, can come back. Most of them are probably looking at this at their last go round, and they want it to end in the NCAA tournament, not in the NIT or at home. So I think you got to expect a big-time rebound out of Devontae Shuler, who was 1 of 15 in the loss to Mississippi State. I think you've got to expect Romello White to bring it tonight. I think you've got to anticipate an A effort from Ole Miss. And for Missouri to win this game, if Ole Miss brings an A effort, I think Missouri's got to bring at least a B or B plus effort, because I don't think there's a big talent gap in these teams at all. So if they play a B plus game and Ole Miss plays an A, could they win? Yeah, they could win that maybe, but not any worse. I mean, they played a C minus game in Oxford. The average was brought down by an F minus in the second half. And you saw what happened. I thought Ole Miss played an A game there, and Missouri played a C minus D plus game, and they got blown out by 20. So I think you got to expect that effort again out of Ole Miss. And Missouri's obviously got to be much, much better. Max Burkhardt says it'll be interesting to see how we do tonight with Tillman on the floor, since I don't think he was in game 1. He did play in that game. That was, again, the game where we believe he found out at some point before that game about the death of his grandma. But Jeremiah played in that game, and he was not all that effective. That was – and hang on. He was not all that effective as being way too nice. He had 6 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, a block, and 3 turnovers in 25 minutes. He took 4 shots in that game. He was 2 of 4 from the floor, 2 of 6 from the line. He did not take a shot in the second half. So, yes, he was in that game, but he wasn't really a part of that game. And the fact that Xavier Pinson just kind of, probably his worst game too. He had 6 points and 4 turnovers in that game. Pinson did. So when Tillman and Pinson combine for 12 points on 5 of 15 shooting, Missouri not going to win very many games. Pinson didn't have a rebound. It was rough. They had 7 turnovers and 5 made field goals. So that goes back to what we were talking about earlier. What's the recipe? Well, your best players have to play well. If your best players don't play well, you're not winning games. So, Tillman, and Ole Miss has some size. I don't know if Kadeem C is back for them or not, but Luis Rodriguez played well against Missouri the first time. they've got some size, but it is a game that you would think Tillman should be able to play well. T-Rise says Tilly has his win back, Mark Smith getting his shot back, X and Drew stay aggressive and out of foul trouble, and Kobe asserting himself. That would certainly be the optimistic outlook on where they're at right now. No question about that. And look, if all those things happen, this team can win a lot of games, right? This team can win every game left on its schedule, and it can make a run in March. But it has to get those things to happen. It can't have Mark Smith going 1 for 8. It can't have Tillman or Pinson with a no-show. It can't have Kobe Brown going back to scoring 4 points. I mean, it needs all those things to happen. So, and that's why the gap between this team's floor and its ceiling is just so big. Cameron Madsen, is Kobe Brown the second best offensive option behind Tillman right now? I think he is. I think Kobe in the last couple games, that's partly been born out of necessity because Tillman obviously didn't play for 2 games, and then he played 21 minutes and played pretty well in the South Carolina game, but he wasn't, he was just kind of getting his feet wet, getting back with the team. So Kobe Brown's last 3 games, the Arkansas game, I mean, he had 6 points on 2 of 5 shooting without Tillman there. But then the Georgia game, 21 points in 31 minutes, and obviously that's the one without Tillman. Then South Carolina, he had 12 points in 22 minutes, but if you remember, he had 10 of Missouri's first 20. He came out of the gate really playing hard and really playing aggressive, and I thought kept Missouri afloat while everybody else was just kind of settling in. Kobe Brown was the guy that got them going. But no, I don't think he's the second best offensive option. I think Drew Smith and X Pinson are going to remain above him there. I think Kobe's role on this team is be a rebounder, get some putbacks, play good defense, and when the opportunity presents itself, then become assertive offensively. I don't think Kobe's a guy you want, hunting 12 shots in a game very often. He took 15 against Georgia and 10 against South Carolina. I think now that Tillman's back, that's probably a little bit high. I think you'd probably look for more like 6 to 8 attempts out of Kobe Brown. And, if you can get 10 points out of him, I think that's pretty good. He's played well. He's definitely been one of the bright spots in the last couple games. But again, now that Tillman's back, I think you've got to run through him. Georgia Rebel talking about A&M. Look, I'm not going to accuse a team of just mailing in on the season, but, I mean, they haven't played since January 29th. We've been going through this thing for almost exactly a year now. You understand what it takes to get back on the floor. Everybody else has managed to do it. I would think if you really want to do it, you can figure out a way to do it. No question. All the rescheduling is messing up senior day. Yeah, but who knows? We could just do senior day again next year, right? They can all come back. Senior day is supposed to be Saturday against A&M. I believe postgame. But obviously, hey, if they don't play A&M, then not so much. Now, they do have 2 other home games, LSU and Vandy, which they're hoping to – they'd love to make up both of them, but certainly hoping to make up one. If you have a choice, you want the LSU game because even though that's tougher, that helps your net ranking. It would make a difference in the standings if you could win it. I mean, beating Vandy doesn't do anything for you right now. Vandy, I think, is actually even below A&M in a lot of the metrics. So extra year realistic for any of the seniors? Yeah, but I mean, we'll see. It's kind of up to all of them. I mean, Drew Smith's married. He's already been in college for 5 years. Does he want to come back? Jeremiah Tillman has a 4-year-old kid. I can't imagine he's coming back. I suppose Mitchell Smith could, but he's been in college for 5 years. Drew Buggs, I think, is in – I forget if he's a 4 or 5 year guy, but it's possible. But, we asked the guys about it, and they said, hey, we're not talking about it yet. And you understand that. You completely understand that's what they're going to say when you ask the question. You just have to ask it. I mean, it's possible they could come back, but it's just something, and I understand why people ask, but we get asked every show and almost every day on the message board, and we don't know at this point. I mean, they have to be wanted back. They have to want to come back. And you got to understand, man, if these guys come back, they still got to go to class. They still got to put in 40, 50 hours a week on basketball for free, not getting paid. So it's not just as simple as, hey, you get to play another year of college basketball. Why wouldn't you want to do that? I know that sounds good to all of us. I think fans and even media a lot of time tend to think, man, if I could have been a college athlete, I would do that for free and I would never leave. Those kids work hard and they put in a lot of time and they're still expected to be students and do that part of it too. So I think it's possible one or two of them would come back. I'd be surprised at more than that, but that's just my gut reaction. Wow, Jeffrey Weber says Iowa State beating Baylor by 13. Baylor playing for the first time in 23 days. Iowa State's terrible. That is absolutely crazy. Danny Ragland wants to know how much to sponsor one show and how much for one rib. Excellent movie reference there. No, we don't have the pregame show sponsored. We do have the postgame show sponsored. But Danny, if you're interested, man, shoot me an email. We'll have the baseline view presented by Danny Ragland for the last two games. So the trifecta of Kobe, Terrence, and Javon will be back. I don't know if that means they'll all play well in this game. That's possible. Oh, for next year you're talking about. Yeah, those guys will be back. There's a question about Pinson at this point, but I really, and this is one of the things about dealing with the diehards of a fan base, which is what we certainly do on a daily basis, is it's always a discussion about the future. And people who follow recruiting, I understand why that is. I mean, that's kind of how they're wired. But, like, we're going to be talking about the NCAA tournament in 3 weeks. That's not something that's happened around Missouri for a long time. So I'm kind of at the point where next year is something we deal with after the season. And, look, I'm sure Conzo Martin and his players and coaches are having discussions about it, and it's not completely out of mind for them. But for me, this is about the next 3 weeks. This is about these 3 to 5 games. It's about the SEC tournament. It's about NCAA play, because this is why you play. This is, to have the shot that Missouri has and hasn't really had for a long time. So I would think that focus on this year. We'll worry about next year. My voice needs a break for a minute. So I'm going to let you hear from Drew Buggs, who we talked to yesterday morning, and then I'll be back.
Hey, Drew. Aside from foul trouble, the other Drew has still reinserted himself as one of the best defenders in the league. What impact, if any, has he had on you on that side of the floor this year?
I think Drew is a tremendous defender, and I just try to take anything I can to learn from him. I think he does a great job of taking on the challenge each and every game and going the other team's best player, and he's just a real solid defensive player that, like I said, I'm just, I always trying to look to add to my game and improve my game, and I enjoy learning from my teammates and other players.
Mitch?
Drew, I know Ole Miss runs a bit of a unique defense with that 1-3-1. Is there anything you all feel like you could take away from seeing it a first time to maybe do differently or better this time around?
I think we're just going to focus on being more aggressive. I think last time we was getting good looks. We just weren't making the shots. We're just not going to let that get us stagnant. We have too many good players on the floor to let someone's defense dictate how we play in the offensive end. So we want to just focus on our end and being sharp and sound and execute.
Dave Matter?
Hey, Drew, besides just getting Jeremiah back on Saturday, what felt different or how you guys got back to playing your style? What do you think the key was?
We had a team meeting just amongst ourselves. Just, this is a veteran group, and we knew that that 3-game skid did not reflect us. Of course, we were missing Jeremiah, which is a big piece, but at the end of the day, this is a deep team, and we don't make excuses. So we just had to regroup and just tell ourselves we had to get back to the way that we were playing earlier in the season. And it's not easy. It's a long season. It's a weird season. And, the SEC is tough. Every game's a battle. So we realized that. We're still in a great position heading into this final stretch of the season. So it wasn't the end of the world, but at the same time, we couldn't just keep going down that same path that we were headed down. So we had to make the change.
Gabe?
Drew, with all you guys having the opportunity to maybe basically have another senior year, is that something you've either thought yet about individually, or all you guys have maybe talked about among one another as far as next season?
That's something I haven't really thought too much about it. That's something I'm just kind of focused on this season right now. And, that's something that I think a lot of us will just reevaluate after the season. We've kind of just all, set our sights on this particular season right here and accomplishing the goal that we have as a team.
Ben Arnett?
Drew, kind of going back to the team meeting that you just mentioned, can you kind of put in perspective for us maybe what the mindset of the group was going into that meeting, and then what the mindset was coming out of that meeting that led to what we saw against South Carolina?
The mindset heading into the meeting is, this is a team that we knew that didn't reflect who we were the past couple games. And, we wanted to just clear the air and just, this is a veteran group. We don't have anybody that's, afraid to let each other know, that we need to just pick it up and that we need to be better. We weren't playing to the level we were capable of. And, it was just a mature veteran meeting that we had where everybody kind of just got our thoughts out. And, we just talked about what we need to improve on, what we could do different. And after the meeting, we all felt good. We felt refreshed and we felt ready to go and go out there and work on the things that we discussed in the meeting. And I think we did a good job showing that against South Carolina.
Jack?
Drew, and I understand if you guys want these details to stay in house, but if you can answer this, whose idea was it to call the meeting?
We'll just keep that in house.
All right, so that's Drew Buggs, senior point guard. He's played well for Missouri, filled a role, made a shot here and there, but mostly just run the offense and don't turn the ball over is his role. Tyler says thought the defense played okay on Saturday, but need to see a high-level defensive performance at home tonight. That's what leads this team to strong transition offense and top 4 SEC level. Yeah, when they can get some live ball turnovers, when they can rebound and get out and run, that's when they're good. And they did that a lot on Saturday. They had some 15 to 20 fast break points. Now, South Carolina had a lot of fast break points in that game too, but Missouri won easily because they were just that good offensively. Still gave up 78, but guess what? If you're going to play a faster pace, if you're going to play a little more offensive than Konzo's teams have in the past, you're probably going to give up a few more points. That said, I'm sure Konzo would love to see his team get back to holding some people in the 60s, which it hasn't done for quite a while. And, hey, if you can still score 90 and hold teams to the 60s, you're going to be doing real well. Had something to point out to you guys real quickly. This from Twitter. Ben Arnett, who's in that meeting with Jim Sturk right now. Sturk says it's, quote, that time in Konzo Martin's contract where discussions start about a potential extension. Martin is in year 4 of a 7-year deal. Sturk adds he thinks Martin has done a great job leading the program. So, yeah, I wrote about this earlier this week. I know Dave Matter wrote about it too. You're at that point where you've at least got to think about whether you're going to offer Konzo an extension. I wrote I probably would wait. And let next year play out. But, I know the reality of coaching contracts is he's only got 3 years left. They're probably going to go ahead and at least if they don't do it this offseason, they're at least going to talk about it and have something in place. And I think they might do it. I know that Dave Matter wrote that discussions have begun. Look, I think Konzo is going to be Missouri's coach next year, and I think he's going to be the coach at least as long as Jim Sturk's here. I could see a couple different scenarios with him, depending on what next year is. I mean, if next year's a huge step backward and then they struggle, we could see in a couple years where it goes. But if they're better than we think next year, and hey, they're back in the tournament pretty quick and all that, then Konzo could be here for till he wants to walk away. So I think that's where they stand. And T-Rise jokes, will Konzo take any of our players with them to Miami next year? Obviously, that was a thing that was on Twitter. Look, I don't think it's impossible that Konzo would take another job next year. I think it's pretty close to impossible that job would be Miami. And I want to be clear. I think he's going to be Missouri's coach next year. I think he's probably going to sign an extension this offseason. So I think this is all a bunch of hot air about nothing. But if Jim Larrañaga does leave at Miami, and I'm not at all sure he will, but if he does, the guy they're calling is named Martin. It's just not Konzo. They're calling Frank Martin. I think that one makes all the sense in the world. He's a Miami guy, and that one is the one that he's probably looking to get out of South Carolina, where they've struggled since the Final Four, where there really has never been a basketball tradition. I'm going to be honest. I never understood why that's the job Frank took to begin with. But he did get him to a Final Four, and he's done a nice job there. Been down a little bit lately. So if Miami's looking for a coach, I think the Martin they're calling is Frank, not Konzo. But and Mitchell Forty just said, the most newsworthy thing from Jim Sturk talking was probably the discussion that it was time to start looking at an extension for Konzo. And look, there's zero chance he's getting fired, and there is a much bigger chance that he gets an extension than that he is not the coach here next year. Jim Sturk likes the job Konzo has done, and it really, I understand we all get frustrated in the heat of the moment and all that, but every Missouri fan should like the job he's done. I mean, this team's been ranked 11 weeks in a row. A lot of you guys here probably subscribe to the website and have probably seen the numbers that I posted this morning. But I'm gonna just kind of tell you what he took over here. So in the 3 years before Konzo Martin, Missouri won 27 basketball games. There are 3 other high major programs who have won 27 games or fewer in 3 years since the turn of the century. So we're talking 21 years now, 21 different seasons. Here are the other teams that have been as bad as Missouri was from 2014 to 2017. Washington State from 2001 to 2004. Outside of the Klay Thompson years, there's not a lot of basketball prestige in Pullman. Penn State from 2002 to 2005. I can't tell you the last time Penn State was an NCAA tournament team. And Baylor from 2003 to 2006, which you might remember the last season in that run, Baylor finished 4-13 because they weren't allowed to play non-conference games because their coach covered up one of their players murdering another one. And that's not a made-up sentence. That really happened. So had Baylor played a full non-conference season that year and just won 6 of the 13 games, they would have won more games in that 3-year stretch than Missouri won in a 3-year stretch. So that's what Konzo took over. And he took them to the NCAA tournament in year 1. And we all know that was kind of a, all-in odd situation with the Porters, which it didn't get them everything they wanted, but it did get the program on track. Then year 2 which was almost like year 1, because really Cassius Robertson was gone, Porter was gone, Blake Harris was gone. I mean, basically, Jonte was the only thing left in that recruiting class. Jonte and Jeremiah Tillman and Pickett. I'm sorry, Javon Pickett was in that same group. So half that class was gone. And so in year 2, you're really basically starting over. And then Jonte Porter tears his knee up a week before the season's supposed to start. So that season, I don't even count. Year 2 doesn't even count for Konzo to me. Year 3, that one was disappointing. I think it's fair to say last year was disappointing. I don't know that Missouri should have been an NCAA tournament team last year, but I thought they should have been better than they were. So last year, a little bit disappointing. And then this year, I think they've overachieved, to be quite honest. I mean, they're better than I thought they would be. So in 4 years, you're talking about 2 NCAA tournament teams, 1 disappointing season, and 1 season that I almost don't even count because it's basically year 1 of a rebuild where your best player gets hurt. I mean, it's certainly not fireable. And I think it's, it's a solid job. And solid jobs these days earn you extensions when you've got fewer than 4 years left on your contract. I mean, that's how people won't like it, but that's how college basketball works. And I've seen a lot of complaints, well, he's making $3 million. Well, that's the going rate, guys. If you want to play this game, you pay your coach $3 million if he's any good. You just do. I mean, Eli Drinkwitz making $4 million. He's won 5 games here. That's the going rate. It's what you do. And nobody complained about how much Missouri was playing Drinkwitz even before last year. It's not your money. It's not my money. I don't care what they pay him. They just need to win games. So, look, I understand that there is some angst, especially game to game, but overall, I think we should all admit that Konzo is doing a solid job. Dan Keister points out, which I actually knew and should have pointed out, but that Frank Martin took the South Carolina job to get away from John Curry ASAP, and that's what I meant. Like, I know he wanted to get away from John Curry, but why for that job? It didn't make any sense to me. South Carolina, there isn't a basketball history there. Like what has gone on there, it's not a surprise. I mean, the surprise was that he got them to a Final Four. The surprise, honestly, to me, was that he even got him to the NCAA tournament. Like this year is kind of what South Carolina often is. So I'll be interested to see what happens with Frank. I know this is a Missouri show, but I'm always interested in the coaching carousel. Concept Check says, I'm in my early 40s, so definitely remember when MU was a basketball school. I hoped that Mike Alden had hired Konzo from Missouri State instead of Frank Haith. Yeah, I know a lot of people that wanted Konzo to get that job back then. In retrospect, it's a little bit surprising he didn't, because the guy they had just missed on was Matt Painter. And I'm sure Matt Painter had good things to say about Konzo when he called to tell Mike Alden he couldn't take the job he had told him he was going to take. I wonder if Matt Painter might have said, hey, man, but I just can't do this. But my guy's down in Springfield, and he can drive up, and he's a good coach. And you wonder what would have been different about Konzo's career if he takes over here with, Kim English and Denman and Dixon and all those guys. And then, like, is he still just here? As opposed to, like, he did a good job at Tennessee, but then things went sour there between him and the fan base, and he left. And then he did a solid job at Cal, and he left there after 3 years for whatever reason. And, I mean, Cal's been terrible since he left, and that's got to at least partly be on Konzo. Not completely, but it does partly have to be on him, I think. So, you do wonder how much different both he and Missouri would have been if he had gotten this job in, I guess that would have been, 2012, 2011, like a lot of Missouri fans wanted at the time. And I know Konzo, like, I knew people who knew him then, and he'd have taken this job then. I don't think there's any question. But Missouri hired Haith, which led to one great season, and then some not so great stuff, which led to Kim Anderson, which led to worse stuff, which led to Konzo eventually getting here. And basically it's been, minus a brief Porter interlude, 7 or 8 years of wandering through the basketball wilderness to get back here. But we're here now, and where we are is Ole Miss at Mizzou, starting in about 10 minutes. Game is on the SEC Network, if I haven't told you guys that. SEC Network is where you can watch this one. Not only did Ole Miss win the last game between these two teams 80-59, but there you see is one of the most shocking, I think, stats or numbers about Missouri basketball. Ole Miss leads this series all time 14-3. Like, I think pretty much everybody, if you asked who's got more basketball history, who's a better program, Missouri or Ole Miss, I think almost everybody would say Missouri. But that has not been the case head-to-head. Ole Miss has dominated them. Now, one of the things to realize about that is that all of those meetings are since Missouri has joined the SEC. I don't think Ole Miss and Missouri had ever played before Missouri was in the SEC. So Obviously, you're getting Missouri at a downtime. Ole Miss had a nice run there with Andy Kennedy and Marshall Henderson, and just head to head, they've been really good in the matchups with Missouri, 14-3. We got about 8 minutes left here. Want to run through? I'll update you the other games. Georgia is beating LSU 87-70 right now, so Georgia's going to hang on there, and they're going to win that game. Severe Wheeler, the Georgia point guard, has a triple-double, the first one in Georgia history. He has got 12 points, 10 rebounds, and 13 assists. Timani Kamara also has 22 points and 10 boards. Quietly, Georgia is 7-9 in SEC play, and they're kind of creeping up on some teams, including Missouri, if Missouri loses this game tonight, which is another reason Missouri needs to win. Florida is up on Auburn 63-42 against, again, Auburn playing that game without Sharif Cooper. With 5 minutes and 43 seconds left, JT Thor is Auburn's leading scorer. He has 7 points. So that's the kind of, it's now 65-42. That's the kind of night it has been for the Auburn Tigers. And so once again, to reset the SEC standings, Alabama leads it at 13-1. And Alabama can win the SEC by beating Arkansas tomorrow night. That game is in Fayetteville. Alabama wins that game. Alabama clinches the outright regular season title. Arkansas goes into that game at 9-4. LSU with the loss today is going to fall to 9-5. Florida with the win is going to go to 8-5. Those are currently your top four. Tennessee is 8-6, plays at Vanderbilt tomorrow night. Missouri is 7-6, hosts Ole Miss tonight, and Ole Miss and Kentucky are both 7-7. So if Missouri can win this game, it will be a game and a half clear of Ole Miss. It will be tied with Tennessee till at least tomorrow night for 5th in the league, and it'll be a half game behind Florida, game behind LSU. So, I mean, everything that this team is playing for, top 4 seed, NCAA tournament bid, all that's left on the table. Everything's there. But pretty much none of it happens if you don't win this game tonight. You got to beat Ole Miss. You got to – and Missouri is, I think, better. I don't know that the gap is as big as people think, but Missouri is a better team. They're at home. Once again, Ole Miss is playing for its season. Ole Miss cannot make the NCAA tournament without a win. I don't think they can make it without winning this game. Missouri is going to make the NCAA tournament even without a win, but I think this game is huge for Missouri for a couple reasons. Again, I think this locks them in. I think they win tonight. It doesn't even matter what they do the rest of the year. They're in the tournament. Also, the top 4 seed in the SEC tournament stays in play with the win. That does not stay in play with the loss. And then much less important, but still kind of a thing, Missouri has been ranked 11 weeks in a row. I am sure that Missouri would like to stay ranked for the rest of the regular season. They will not be ranked if they lose this game. They're number 24. They're going to fall out if they lose this game. So, that's just one more little, hey, you've got something to play for thing. Ed joining us, Ed Blythe, and Ed's been with us all basketball season and some of football season too. Appreciate it, Ed. Good to hear from you, man. If Alabama wins the league, does that mean that Mizzou can? Absolutely. No Missouri fan should think that the SEC is not winnable in basketball. Now, look, I was a senior in high school the last time Missouri won a conference title in the regular season, so it's been a minute. This year, Alabama's catching it in a good year because Kentucky's terrible, right? They're usually going to be the league favorite. They're not this year. So, hey, you're catching it in a year where, as of right now, 14-4 would win this league. Now Bama's going to be better than that. But you're catching it in a little bit of a down year. There's really, outside of Alabama, there's not a great team in this league. And Alabama is a really good team. I'm not sure it's great. But everybody else has shown significant warts and flaws throughout the season. So, this is the type of year to win it. But absolutely, I think Missouri should have, goals to win this league. I don't think that should be by any means out of reach for Missouri basketball. I mean, we can talk about what realistic expectations are on another show. And I think Missouri fans maybe have to kind of recalibrate what that is after the last 20 years or so. But yeah, Missouri basketball can win an SEC title. I don't think there's any question about it. So that's a good place to leave it, I think, guys. Appreciate had a pretty active show tonight. Appreciate all of you who showed up. I hope some of you decide to stay up a little bit late. We'll be back 10:15, 10:30, somewhere in that neighborhood with the Burger Smokehouse Dance Class postgame show. Again, the way it works, I'm going to sign off here. I'm going to go watch the game. You guys are going to watch the game. Mitchell Forty will have you covered throughout on the message boards and on the site. And then afterwards, I'll jump on Conzo Martin's postgame. I'll record that, and I will immediately start the postgame show. It should be about 20 minutes after the final buzzer. But again, the way you find out is you subscribe to the channel. That will allow you to set up an alert when we go live. So you will just be able to click a button on your phone or your laptop and jump right into the conversation. Before you sign off, before I sign off, do me a favor, hit that like button if you haven't done it yet. It helps get us attention and spread the word about what we're doing. We always like to get more people watching. So 2 minutes, SEC Network. Enjoy the game. We'll be back here to talk about it after.